Happy Pride! I appreciate the invitation to be with you and to preach the good news on this festive day. I thought about bringing hats, passing them out to those who identify with Martha and those who identify with Mary. Just get a sense of how the room would be divided. Maybe have a tug of war, knowing that Martha would totally win. The story of Martha and Mary has consistently made half the room's blood boil, or more than half of the room if the room has more women than men. This story can fuel old and present wounds and royal family dynamics about who does the work and who doesn't do the work. I find that I am often in dialogue with people who this passage makes them outraged. Who was going to do the work if Martha wasn't? Must be nice to just sit down at Jesus' feet. I have a family member just like Mary, doesn't even notice when I'm hustling around, making sure everything's all right. It's challenging to hear this story and not get lost in your own story and take up sides and go back and forth about who is right and who is wrong. Martha, angered by Mary's lack of participation in preparing hospitality to their honored guest, and Jesus for the total lack of concern for Martha doing all the work. I imagine Mary just rolled her eyes. But if she fought with her sister later, I can imagine her saying to Martha that she could have just put the work down and sat at Jesus' feet. Could I have? Martha would have retorted. Because Martha isn't just holding the burden of hospitality for that day. She is holding an ancient burden. Did you notice that while the story from Genesis centers on Abraham running around trying to host, all he is actually doing is passing the labor on to Sarah and his servant? This is not a new story. There are people who have never been able to put the work down. But what if today we give ourselves permission to at least set aside the tension between Martha and Mary? What if we don't treat this gospel text like a personality test or a birth order stereotype, and instead just get on the same team? What if we could show solidarity and not fight each other, but rather fight against the thing that's creating the divide? Can we give up our Mary and Martha hats and put on a rest in peace patriarchy hat? Rest in peace patriarchy is a slogan that poet and activist Andrea Gibson often wore as a t-shirt. Andrea Gibson was a celebrated American poet, spoken word artist, and activist who gave voice to issues like gender identity, LGBTQ+ rights, mental health, illness, and grief. They are the author of 7 albums and 7 poetry books, and was appointed the Poet Laureate of Colorado in 2023. They died this past Monday, 1 month before their 50th birthday of ovarian cancer. And I've spent this past week revisiting their work and listening in tears to their beautiful and heart-aching words. And one particular piece resonated with me as I sat with the story of Martha and Mary. In March of 2023, Andrea shared a poem that was part of a NPR Tiny Desk concert. It is a poem that they describe as diving into the many emotions that surface for them while watching people with wildly different politics than theirs navigate illness and mortality in the chemo chairs right beside them. An experience, they said, changed their life in ways they continued to try and articulate. Andrea did not believe in wearing political statements into the chemo room. But one day during chemo, someone took a seat wearing a political statement that ignited this poem. These are their words. He's going to show up to my funeral waving a God hates queers sign at my family's tears. He doesn't think I'm going to hell. He does think I'm going to hell. He doesn't know that I'm going to show up to heaven just to see Jesus standing outside the pearly gates with a sign that says, gays not welcome, and God in the clouds above him laughing like an ethereal sixth grader saying, we're just kidding. We're just kidding. Look, we made the pearly gates rainbow for you. Look, we made chips and hummus. Oh my God, how do you know the queers love chips and hummus? Because I'm God. Oh my God. Is it true you're letting all the non-binary people in first? Yes, oh my God. That's why you call it the Holy Trinity and not the Holy Binary, isn't it? Here's what's true. Here's what is true. I don't wear political attire to chemo because I desperately want this room to be a country where no one looks at me and identifies me as their enemy. I want to feel what I rarely feel outside of here, that everyone is rooting for me to survive. There is a land that free. Somewhere we just think believing in it is a child's prayer, something you only let yourself want when you don't yet know the world. But if that land can exist in this room, where everyone's being told they could die soon, how will it ever happen out there when everyone thinks they have so much time? Isn't that room supposed to exist here? In the church? I think so. But from the earliest days, from the days Jesus was literally in the same room, we haven't figured it out. We don't get it. But can we? Is that why you're here? Do you want to build that room? Can we support each other? I feel like that is what Jesus was trying to say to Martha and Mary. I know it hasn't sounded like that to many people, and if I was looking for support and acknowledgement, I am sure hearing Jesus say, Christopher, you are worried and distracted by many things. There is a need of only one thing, and your sister has chosen the better part. I would not be inclined to hear that and embrace my sister or Jesus and put down what I was doing and listening. But what if that one thing was to be on the same team? What if that one thing was to root for each other? And what if Mary needed to hear that as much as Martha? Your sister is worried and distracted. Root for her, embrace her, be with her. I was recently preaching at a church, and during the announcements, a young person shared his gratitude to the community for showing up at the local Pride event the day before. After the service, someone came up to me and literally whispered in my ear, that announcement was a bit much. I'm just so glad our current administration has simply stated there are boys and there are girls and nothing else. And I don't care if you're L, G, T, B, whatever, you're nothing but queer. I rarely feel more alone and terrified than when I'm not expecting to be harassed. And when I come to my own church thinking I'm safe, I was looking for someone to come up and tell that person, you are worried and distracted by the wrong things. Christopher has chosen the better part. Friends, there's a parade of people that will walk through the streets of Portland today, and they have been told that Jesus hates them. There is a divide, and on one side of that divide is a voice that has been louder than ours, claiming Jesus and putting that to put others down. Can we be louder? Can we flood the streets together and reclaim what we know to be true? Can we still believe in a child's prayer that we are rooting for each other in a land that can be free of hatred? Can we believe because we are making it so? Andrea's tiny desk poem continued, when anyone in this room leaves this world, part of me does too. I feel it in every cell of me now that I am not a me. I'm one eyelash in the eye of humanity, holding on for dear, dear life, trying to get the eyelashes beside me to look in the right direction before we are all wiped off the face of this planet that desperately wants us to live of natural causes like kindness, like caring, like knowing these bodies are clothes that we are all growing out of so quickly until one day we will be only souls who can see we always wanted the exact same wish to come true. I know we will know that when we leave this world. The planet is just so desperate for us to know it now, too. Amen.